Hello, I'm Mira Frisch. I'm the cello professor from UNC Charlotte. In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating some simplified fingerings that you may choose to use for your auditions for the North Carolina Honors Orchestras. So I will say these are not the fingerings that I teach my college students or my high school students who have had many years of private lessons. And these are not the fingerings that I do myself, but these are fingerings that I've come up with, so they're cello professor approved fingerings that are simplified versions of the more advanced fingerings. These fingerings that I'm about to play, I feel would be very helpful for a student who is attempting to learn these scales on their own without the help of a private teacher. So feel free to discuss these fingerings with your orchestra teacher. If you have a private teacher, I would certainly defer to your cello teacher for your fingering, but I do hope that you find my simplified fingerings helpful. So I'm going to play through each scale and show you a simplified fingering where necessary, okay? So I'm starting with the C major scale. This is not a simplified fingering. This is the same fingering that I use. To that a little slower so you can really get the fingering. So I start with first position, 2, 4, then I shift to fourth position and use 1, 2, 4. Then since I have relatively small hands, I'm going to open my elbow and bring my thumb around slightly to the side, not on top. I'm just scooching my thumb just like a centimeter to the side of my neck so I can comfortably reach with a curved finger to my A harmonic. Then I'll play with 1, and then I reach a whole step 2, and then a half step 3 for my last 3 notes of A, B, C. Same fingering coming down, fourth position, 4, 2, 1, first position. Okay, hopefully that's helpful to you. For the C major arpeggio, I am going to demonstrate a simplified fingering for you. Open, 3, open G, 4, 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, slide to 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 4, open, 3, open C. So the only tricky shift happens right here. So you can practice sliding to your high C. I let my thumb rest on the fingerboard. My thumb replaces my fourth finger to make that shift comfortable. Okay, so that might be a good fingering for you. Next, we're going to play G major scale. This one, there is not an alternative fingering for this scale. So I'll just play it. Scale, that one becomes trickier in the top octave. I'll play that one slower, and I would like to point out that after the tonic note, after the first note of the very top octave of your scales, if you are using the traditional professional fingering like I am for this scale, the fingering will always be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and your first shift will be a whole step from 4 to 1. Your next shift will be a half step shift from 2 to 1, and your last shift will be a whole step shift. So you have to shift a whole step, and then a half step, and then a whole step when you're finding your new positions. Hopefully you find that helpful. So here we start from G, then I'm gonna play 1A, whole step to 2B. I'm gonna let my thumb come up, and I'm gonna shift to my first finger, a note that I could temporarily check with my third finger, a half step away from 2, shifting to 1 on C. Now I play D with 2, and if I want to check the next note, I reach a whole step with my third finger, but that's where I'm going to shift to 1. And then 2 F sharp, 3 G. Back down, 2, 1, 2 whole step shift. That was 2, 1 half step shift. Whole step to 1, 4. So what you can see I'm doing is I'm always very aware of where my whole and half steps are, whether I'm reaching a whole step or a half step for the next finger. And every time I shift, I'm not guessing, I know how far I have to go and I know what that's gonna sound like, okay? Now the G major arpeggio, I have come up with one that would be potentially easier for you if you're not as comfortable playing in the upper register of the cello. So I'll play this one slowly with separate bows. It'll be open G, third finger on the G string for B, open D, 4 for G, then fourth position 3 for B. D would be played with thumb harmonic on the D string, and then you'll drop your fingers in a major scale pattern in thumb position to get to the next note, which is third finger, G. So the last note is D, next note is G, cross over to the A string, B is 1, D is 3, and then you're gonna open the hand. Most of you will probably be able to reach that, keeping your thumb on that A harmonic. Back down to D, 1, 3, D is thumb, 3, G is 4, and first position. I'll play that a little bit more fluently so you can hear it. We'll do D major. This is a professional fingering for D major. I'm going to start in a forwards extension. It's important that we play the first 2 notes of the D major scale 1 to 2, even though it's a whole step. We might ordinarily play those notes 1 to 3. We need to play them 1 to 2 so we can reach our pinky to the F sharp, which is the third note of this scale. So if you're not as comfortable as I am dropping your hand into a forward extension, I would recommend that you plop your hand in first position, shift the whole hand, including thumb, a half step down the fingerboard, which means up in pitch, and then reach your first finger back. Now I'm set with my thumb across from 2 and I'm ready for the D major scale. In other words, a half step shift plus a backwards extension is the same thing in the end as a forward extension. Oh, here I go. So we're gonna play 1 X 2 4, 2 strings in a row. Now I release my extension, go to fourth position, and then harmonic thumb, thumb, 1, 2, 3 was my last fingering pattern there. I'm going to come down more in tempo. Fourth position, first position. Here's where you would shift a half step forward and reach back with 1. And I do have an alternate simplified fingering for this particular key that I'll play for you in the arpeggio. So 1x4, 1, open D, release the hand, first position, fourth position, A harmonic thumb, and then plop the fingers down for D, A, F sharp, D, the last 2 octaves like that a little bit more fluently so you can hear it. is not the fingering that you'll do forever, but that's a fingering that is not going to cause any injury or any development of bad habits in your technique that you can use for this audition. A major is the next scale, and that one, the fingering I have is, I think, very similar to the one you're probably already using. I start with an extension again in this key to get the C sharp and the G sharp. Release the extension, and here I do another extension, 1, 2, 4 harmonic. So the thing to keep in mind here, I play E, F sharp with 2, then just drop fingers 3 and 4 for a G sharp, and I know my A harmonic is going to be just a half step above that G sharp 4th finger that I played. Back down, same thing. Okay, and an arpeggio for that, a simplified version would look like this. 1, 4, 1, open A, shift to second position, 1 on C sharp, 4 E, A harmonic, 4 E, 1 on C sharp, first position with the forward extension. Do you see that whole step between 1 and 2? Okay, then B flat major. Again, my fingering will be fairly similar to yours because it's not so complicated in just the 2 octaves that you're learning. So I need to think of my key signature, B flat and E flat. All my backwards ones are because of the key signature. Now I'm going to shift, instead of pinky on D, I'm going to shift to 1 on D. 1, 2, 4. And then I shift a whole step to G, A, B flat with the fingering 1, 2, 3, coming down, just redo, same fingering. And my arpeggio is a simplified version of what I would typically use myself that I'm going to offer here. So B flat, you'll be in first position for the first full octave. So 2, open, 2, extension, 1, 4, 4th position, 2 for F, and just slide up for your B flat. Okay, you can leave your thumb behind. You don't even need to bring thumb up. Reach your B flat and come down to the F, D, B flat, F, D, B flat. I'll play it more fluently. You can see that that's a little bit of a slurpy fingering with all those shifts, and that's why as you get more advanced, I would advise that you use a more professional fingering, but that's a good one for you if this is your first time, certainly with these scales. We just have a few more. F major. F major, I'll just use the simplest fingering I can, climbing up the fingerboard from 1st to 4th position. I do need to think about B flats in this key, so 2nd finger on the G string and a backwards extension on the A string for my B flat. Once I make it to my 4th position F, I'm going to use the standard 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 fingering that I taught you in the previous key of G major. So I won't go through that right now, but I'll demonstrate it. It's the same exact idea. F major. Here's my backwards 1. Now bring my thumb up. Back to F. Please remember when you're up high, that in this area of the cello, if you're going to be going higher on your scale, you need to bring your thumb up to rest on the fingerboard. And it's important that your thumb doesn't get left behind. As you're gliding higher and higher down the fingerboard, thumb should just rest gently on top of the strings and come along for the ride. So in other words, we want thumb to hang out behind the first finger of about a whole step and always slide with the hand during all of your shifts in your third octave or even fourth octave of your scales. Here's a simplified fingering for the F major arpeggio. The top octave, I'm going to be making use of 2 A harmonic with thumb. Then the C, I'm going to open my hand slightly to play C with 1, and I'm going to do what feels like an extension, a perfect fourth reach, to find 1 to 3 for my last F. So here's the whole thing. First position, fourth position, reach, and one thing you can do in the second octave, instead of the open A, you can go up the D string 1, 4, 2, and that is a little bit more mimicking the professional fingering. So either one of those would be a good option. Now we're going to take a look at the minor scales. So the C minor scale, I'm going to mimic the fingering of the C major scale. So I'm going to end with 1, 2, 3. My thumb again just right here on this side. So I'm not bringing my thumb up to play the C scales, but I'm going to pay attention to the key. Okay, I have 3 flats that I need to remember in the key of C minor. So here's C melodic minor. Repeating the octave. I have a different system that I use for myself. So you'll do your system, but I hope that that fingering was helpful to you. Remember when you do your melodic minor scales that you're going to be raising the 6th and 7th notes. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the next note, 6, that's going to be A natural instead of A flat. A natural. And the 7th note is B natural instead of B flat. You really need to think about your fingerings. That's why up here I play A natural, B natural, C. But hopefully you notice how I scooch my fingers back on the way down. All the flats are present in the key. So C, B flat, A flat, G, F, E flat, D, C, B flat, and I cannot play an open A on the way down. I need to play an A flat. I'm going to hop my hand a half step to play A flat. It's the same place that you might think of for G sharp. And then hop back down a half step to play G, F, E flat, D, C, and we've already talked about that, the rest of that octave. Okay? The C minor arpeggio, I would do something very similar to what we did for C major. And now we'll do D minor scale. So D minor has 1 flat, B flat, but I'm going to have to remember again to raise the 6th and 7th notes of that scale. So I'll be raising my B flat to B and my C natural to C sharp on the way up, but on the way down I'll be playing C naturals and B flats. Extension. Position, Now on the way down, I have to scooch 2 and 1 low to play C natural with 2 and B flat with 1 A harmonic, 4th position. And the arpeggio is going to be very similar to the D major arpeggio. Again, this is a simplified fingering for those of you who need it. So 1, 4, 1, open D, 2, A, 4, 2, F, A harmonic with thumb, and drop the fingers to D, A, 2, first position, and there you have it. I think I made it through all the scales, and I hope that those simplified fingerings may be helpful to you. Again, feel free to use the more advanced fingerings if you're capable of using them, and especially if you have a teacher who is helping you with those fingerings. It is, of course, my hope that these simplified fingerings will make these auditions more accessible to more students, especially those students who may not have access to private lessons right now. And please feel free to reach out to me on the UNC Charlotte website. You can find my email if you have any further questions. Good luck.
Your journey as a musician involves hard work, discovery, and making music come alive. How do you become the musician you want to be? At Davidson Violins, we have the expertise to help you become a great musician. Our studios help students learn fundamental techniques that help them play some of the world's most beautiful music. Our luthiers adjust and repair your instrument to ensure you sound your best. Great instruments, bows, and a wide selection of strings allow you to be at your very best in auditions, orchestras, and your personal enjoyment. Come explore the world of string instruments with our staff of professional teachers, luthiers, and players. Visit us at 102A South Main Street in Davidson, North Carolina, or online at davidsonviolins.com. Davidson Violins is here to help you sound your best.